Okay, so currently your married name, Michele Logan. Please pronounce your maiden name.
Oh, Carancelis. Michele Carancelis.
Carancelis, okay.
Yeah.
And forgive me, but if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that's Greek?
It is Greek.
Okay.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about where you came from, a little bit about sort of what you've done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood and tell me a little bit about, I guess, some of your interests, some of the things you like to do when you were younger.
Oh, my goodness. So,
Bring you all the way back.
I know, all the way back. So I guess, so I was born in South Jersey, grew up in
really?
Philadelphia. Go
South
Eagles.
Jersey where? Like Camden area or?
No, I was born in Cape May Courthouse is
Cape
actually
May.
the name of the town, Cape
Okay.
May Courthouse. Whenever I said that, people would be like, you were born in a courthouse? And I was like, no. It's actually the name of the city.
The name of the city, okay.
Yeah, so I lived there for about a year, and then my parents moved back to the Philadelphia area. So was raised there until about the age of 8. And then my parents divorced and then moved to West Virginia for a year.
Really?
So fun.
Interesting.
Wheeling. Yeah, but the
Wheeling.
little tip there, you went to the Ohio Valley Mall a lot.
Oh, wow.
It's the only thing to do out there back then.
Probably still.
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
And then where else did we move? Then we moved to South Carolina, and I lived
Good God.
in Greer for a year.
So you lived the whole East Coast?
Pretty much, yeah, just kind of up and down. Then I lived in North Carolina and lived there from like 5th grade to 8th grade.
Okay.
And then moved to Bel Air. So then I'm like in Maryland. So
yeah.
that's where I did my freshman year at Bel Air High School.
Okay.
And then came to Arnold sophomore year. So came to Broadneck
Sophomore
when I was in
year.
10th grade. Yep.
Did you travel that whole time? Were you going between parents? Were you with one particular parent that whole time, or?
Yeah, so I lived with my mom. So in her remarrying, my stepdad at that time, his position, he kept getting promoted. A lot of people ask if I was like in the military.
Military brat. Yep, that's what I was going to ask.
Yes. So no, it's not military. It was just that he would continue to get promoted and we would continue to move.
Yeah. Follow the opportunity.
Yeah. So is essentially what we did. So yeah, I think it really gave me a good perspective because while I would have loved to have stayed in one place for all 12 years of growing up, I think it gave me a really good perspective of people and being open to different people and different ways of living.
Yes.
So I really, while I hated it,
sure.
in the moment,
at the time,
by the time I got to Broadneck, I was a professional. Like I pretty much
knew how to make friends.
Knew how to make friends,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it was like I was really good at observing people and figuring out people that might get me into trouble and and knowing the people that might help elevate me to not get into trouble.
Yeah. Was there one particular place that was harder for you to live than another? I mean, those are very varied areas to live in.
I would honestly say because West Virginia was the first move that I had ever experienced, and dealing with parents' divorce, it was, and I had a very strong accent back then.
Like a Southern?
No, like a
Philadelphia
accent, going to the country of West
They're
Virginia.
like, who is this Yankee here?
Like, why are you talking that way? And so it was a lot of teasing and like, oh, you're a new kid, and like, so you
stuck out.
And it was in the middle of a school year. Like, if you ever move, you
terrible.
never wanted to be in the middle of a school year.
And what grade was that?
That was 3rd grade.
Oh, that's what grade my daughter's in now. It's 3rd grade. And we moved just before her kindergarten year, so it was perfect.
Yeah, Or if you're going to move, you do it like just at the beginning of the school. But like smack dab December, we up and moved, and it was in the middle of the school year, and so it was definitely like.
That's a tough. Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, so I have an older sister, Monica. When I was a sophomore, she graduated in '97.
Okay.
And then my brother, Greg Carancelis, he graduated in 2001.
Okay, a little bit younger.
Yeah.
I'm sure that made it a little bit easier when it came to moving and parents' divorce and things to have kind of your brother and sister.
We fought like cats and dogs. But
at least it was normal, right?
It was nonstop. I mean, we were all that we really knew, and so it was like you're in a house with each other nonstop all the time. We fought all the time. I had it's so funny. My sister Monica and I laugh. Like, we had a horrible relationship growing up.
Yeah.
And then when she went to college, it was like waterfall, tears just coming down. Like, we couldn't live apart. And like, we're honestly best friends now. So it really is funny to, like, when we talk about it, we're like, we could not stand each other when we lived in a house together.
Right.
So
you just needed that space of not living in the same room or same adjacent room or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. And you know, Greg, he's just like a social, if anybody knows Greg, they know like how social and outgoing he is. That for the most part, he's always out of the house, like jumping and like hanging out with jumping around, hanging out with other friends and whatnot. Right. So it was very much like, oh, Greg's here. Greg's not here. Oh, okay, whatever.
Right. So he was kind of the missing brother in a sense.
Sometimes, like, it's like, is Greg in the house? Okay, let's street lights are on. Hopefully, Greg's here.
Right. And you stayed. I mean, so you came to Arnold, like you said, in 10th grade. It wasn't in the middle of the year, was it? It was the beginning.
No, it was the beginning.
Okay,
yeah.
That's what I thought. And you stayed for the next 3. You graduated with us from Broadneck.
Yeah.
And did you stay in that same house that whole time too?
Yeah.
Was that kind of like a relief to be like, damn, this is like 3 solid years?
It was. Well, you know, when we lived in North Carolina, we were there for about 3 or 4 years as well. So
a little bit of time.
Yeah, that move was a little difficult than moving up to Bel Air and, you know, experiencing that little bit of culture shock. But,
right.
But definitely like, I think it was real nice. Like, oh, like I know where I'm going. And like, especially like the second year that you're you're established. Like, you're not the new girl anymore. Right. People aren't calling me Melissa anymore. Like, they, you know,
they called you Melissa.
Really? A lot of the times whenever I came to a school, like, oh, you're the new girl, Melissa, right? And I'm like, close. It's Michelle.
And that happened at every school you went to?
Pretty
was Melissa?
much every school.
That's random.
But I think people, like, you look at somebody and you're like, I feel like this could be your name, and then you're completely off base. Yeah. But it's like, at least you got the M right. Like, I'm good with it. So.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So I only know you obviously from our time at Broadneck together, and I know that you were SGA president senior year. You said correct. You were also on the step squad. Yes, right? What were some of the other? You were involved in a bunch of stuff, I seem to recall.
I was involved in, I did a lot of different things, but definitely those were the 2 big things that I did was class president. I think, who was the SGA president?
Oh, is class president different than SGA?
Yeah, so SGA was like the whole school. Was Maggie? Somebody was. I apologize for not remembering that.
Well, yeah, we'll have to get on that, yeah.
I feel like it might have been Maggie Kasicki.
Would it say it in our yearbook?
I don't know if it would say it in the yearbook.
I was going to say, I'll get up and get it. Well, then, let me ask you this. Obviously, you only spent 1 year at high school, I guess, at Bel Air. Were you always one to be involved in things?
I liked to be involved in things. My mom's going to kill me. I had a very overprotective parent, and so she would not let me do a lot of things because we did move around so much. And so
was she worried that you would get attached maybe, or worried about who you might be influenced by?
No, I think it was just her being the overprotective parent of like, what are you going to get into when I don't have my eye on you type of thing. So it's super fun. Super fun. But the way that I found around it was to just join every extracurricular activity I could possibly think to do.
Right. Because she would let you do school-sponsored stuff?
She would let me do school-sponsored stuff. So, like, I would get to school a little late every day, first period, whatever. But then I would be after school sometimes, especially in, like, by senior year, like, 4 or 5 o'clock sometimes, just because of like and it wasn't like on an ongoing basis, but it was definitely like, oh, I have to go home now. Oh, okay, all right. I guess I gotta go home now.
You formed some really close bonds during those times, right? Like, who are some of the folks that I guess you connected with the most when whether it was in those clubs or in classes in general?
Yeah, so definitely like MJ Pruner. Yep. I was very close to in high school, and then even with, like, SGA and stuff, like, definitely, like, Nahima Howard and Keisha Parker and Casey Hunt. Like, I was definitely, especially, like, junior into senior year, we were definitely very close-knit. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's good to have those like-minded individuals to do those things with, you know what I mean? I think that's why I was always such a sports nut, because all of my closest friends, we were all sports nuts, and that was just what you did, you know what I mean? And so similar with you guys, where it was like you had similar interests and you kind of just clicked. And I was going to say that, I was always the person from the stands, watching you perform at halftime at basketball games and things. You know, as you can see, I've got drum sets here, so I have some sort of rhythm, but when it comes to dance, Steve and I, my husband, are terrible at it. So when I would see the steps, I was like, man, I wish to God I could do it. So I tell you what, where did that come from? That's what I want to know.
So what's actually funny is that going even back to when I lived in North Carolina in middle school, there was this thing for what I thought was a pep squad, which was essentially like you weren't a cheerleader.
Yeah.
But you cheered the cheerleaders on.
You cheered the cheerleaders
right.
on.
So I was like, oh, there's a pep squad meeting today. So I went and showed up, and here it was actually a step squad thing. And it was an audition, like tryouts. Yeah. And so my sister was especially angry at me because she was trying out for it. And so when she saw me, like, you could just see her face, like, what are you doing here? Right. And I was just like,
cramping my style.
I was like, I thought it was pep squad. I had all my cheers memorized. Like,
I was gonna say, were you a cheerleader? I mean, you had a background?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Interesting.
But it's one of I do love myself a good cheerleading competition on ESPN too, right?
That's incredible stuff right there.
Super, super fun to watch.
Yeah.
So like, while I knew I didn't have the athleticism of a cheerleader, I wanted to participate again somehow in an extracurricular, and pep squad was what fit the bill for me because I wasn't athletic in middle school. So I did that, and so then lo and behold, I got on the step squad team in middle school.
Enough. Wow.
So my sister and I, through middle school, while we lived in North Carolina, we actually were in step squad together.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was...
Did that bond you? Did that cause you to fight more or fight less, or didn't matter at all?
Didn't matter. Yeah. Didn't matter. And so the fighting was going to happen.
Sure.
And then when I came to Broadneck, it was like, I missed that in Bel Air. They didn't have that. They didn't have a step squad in Bel Air. And so when I came to Broadneck, I was super excited to hear that they were having one. Yeah. And I don't know that it was the first year, but it definitely was like kind of in its infancy, to say the least, I think.
Yeah.
And so that was when...
That's what I thought. Yeah, okay.
I feel like it was in its infancy, like it had only been around, if it had been around, it maybe a couple of years before. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it definitely, Ms. Barnes was the coach. Yeah.
Nice.
And she was great. She was also like our class-sponsored teacher. So
really? Forget all this stuff.
So good
memory.
Yeah. So it was really nice just to like get to know her, like especially outside of like instruction and different things like that, and just create that bond. So like in terms of like teacher, she definitely is someone that sticks out. That through high school, she was always just kind of there and present for me. So
that's nice. Good. I always regret. I was kind of one of those kids that wanted to fade into the background, right? So I never made connections or relationships with any of my teachers. It was a very
back of the class,
arm's length, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I really, and that happened in college too, and as an adult I hugely regret that, because it really kind of surprises you how invaluable those teacher connections can be, in terms of writing letters of recommendation, or just needing guidance from a trusted adult, or, any number of things. And I definitely regret it. And now it's kind of one of the things where I was a kid in school that was not involved. Well, I shouldn't say not involved in anything. I was not one to, like you, put myself out there in those sorts of situations. Whereas now I'm one of those moms who's always involved in something. Yeah. And my daughter is always like, she's part of the student advisory club, which is kind of the precursor to the student government stuff. And, it's funny how I'm like, wow, if I'd have known, 16-year-old me would not have recognized 37-year-old me,
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, about 16-year-old you versus...
16-year-old me would probably be like, why are you such a hermit? I think is actually...
Why aren't you out having more fun?
Yeah, I think it's just, like you get wrapped up in like... In day-to-day life, having 2 kids and having a full-time job, and there's an hour commute and one way. And so it's definitely like at the end of the week, are you going to go out and hang out with people, or are you going to just recuperate to prepare for the next week? So it's definitely one of those things. But it's so funny. I was actually thinking about that, like my high school self, and like, I'm going to do this when I'm an adult. I'm going to do this when I'm an adult. And
always
then
the best laid plans.
What has really happened as I'm an adult?
Yes.
So it is really interesting to think about that.
Yeah. I mean, thank God we're not the same as we were, right?
I was so annoying in high school.
Like reading some of the comments in my yearbook. And I'm just like, God, I was an asshole.
It's horrible.
Oh my God. that. Yeah. Or like I'll hear stories. That's kind of why I'm interested in our 20-year reunion, because, narcissistically, I like hearing like, when you did this, and you're like, oh my gosh. But yeah, so, and actually, let's go back real quick. So we graduated in 99. You then did you go to college immediately after high school, or did you hang out for a minute?
So, I mean, you might consider it a combination of both. Because I went to, I guess what we used to call 13th grade. I went to the community college.
Yeah.
But I didn't really.
Harvard on the Magathy. Harvard on the Magathy. So sorry. Yes.
I did not take full, I don't even know how to say this. I would drive there, and I basically would then just go to the cafeteria and not really go to class. So yes, I was enrolled, and yes, I hung out.
Yes.
So, and I earned a very stellar 0.25 GPA in my first semester in college.
0.25.
It was so exciting for me.
I am glad to know, by the way, because I was on academic probation my first year of college, I'm glad to know that Michele Kranzlis was in the same boat. I like to hear that. Okay.
Also there.
Not for your sake, but for my own.
Just for anybody out there. Yes, it has happened to many of us. Maybe.
In fact, that's why I was not allowed to go to the community college. Like, I literally was not allowed to go. My mom's like, you're going to a 4-year university and you're going to go to school, because she saw so many kids doing kind of what you're doing that, and she's like, no.
Yeah. So luckily, I was also one that was able to get my act together, because I was like, oh, probation, never been on that before, don't want to be up, because I am a rule follower.
Right.
I like to follow rules in life, with the exception of not going to class and sitting in the cafeteria watching other people play cards.
Right. You were testing out your adultness. It was a newfound adultness,
like,
right?
This is what I'm going to show you, people.
Right.
I have 0.25.
Yeah. So that kind of hit you kind of hard a little bit.
Kind of hard. I think I got a D in art, in drawing. I think it was. So like that was the 0.25
sure.
out of that. So it hit deep. It hit hard. Man. So yeah, and then afterwards,
and you probably didn't know by then what you wanted to do, or did you kind of have an idea?
No clue.
Yeah,
I think that's also the thing too. Like, working with people and trying to help them figure stuff out. Like, it's like, I don't know what I want to do, and it's like, you're 18. Like, how are you supposed to know what you want to do for the rest of your life?
Yes.
Even now, as you've set a path, like, we're turning 37, 38.
Yeah.
There's still that question of like,
am I on the right path? Yeah. Should I take a left turn somewhere? Or
and
absolutely.
I think it's great to reevaluate. But when you're first like at 18, like the idea of like, what am I? Where am I starting right now? Because this is the path for the rest of my life. Is daunting.
It's so daunting. Yeah.
Very.
Because if you make the wrong mistake and then you invest all that money in university
and all that time. Yeah. So I realized that I was working part-time, worked at a paint store.
Okay.
So it was funny, I was driving Fred Davis to work one day, and I thought he was the commissary, because that's where Fred Davis worked in high school. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I'll take you here. He's like, no, we're going to go to the paint store. That's where I'm working now. And I was like, oh, the paint store? Oh, okay. And that was like in the summer after we graduated.
Okay.
And so, I was running out of my graduation money that people had given me as gifts at the end of the summer.
Yep.
And they were like...
Blew it all at senior week. Did you go to senior week?
I did. Okay. I did go to senior week.
Yeah.
And so then I ended up getting a job at Sherwin, because they were looking for people, because I think Martell was also working there that summer, Martell Threadgill. So Martell and Fred were working there that summer, and they were headed off to 4-year colleges. And then I was, staying at ACC, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll work here. Like, it's a perfect thing. Yeah. So I was able to work at Sherwin-Williams, and I worked there until like 2011. Like, I did part-time work while also working full-time. Like, I would do painting clinics and different things like that by the end, because I also had full-time jobs.
House painting clinics.
Yeah.
Not like art on a canvas kind of thing. So,
no, full-blown, faux finishing was really big.
Oh, wow. Look at that. So I bet you're great at redecorating your houses, no?
I mean, I'm good at painting, though. I think I've learned that there's a difference.
Sure.
I can watch as much HGTV as I want, but it's not getting there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was working part-time and going to community college, and so it took me about 3 years to get through community college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still got through it, though, so you got your associates.
So I got my associates, yeah. And then went to...
It's general studies, technically, right? Something like that?
I did general studies. I think you can get specific degrees and stuff, but for me it was just again, I had no idea what my course was, so I'm just going forward with this.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I think we talked about this at our last reunion planning meeting where you were teased for not having a higher class position, but you were still up there though, weren't you?
I was not. I don't even remember what ranking I was.
Oh, you don't even remember? Okay.
I don't remember. Like that's I think that speaks to it. But I think I was made fun of for my GPA. I don't enjoy studies. I'm more of like that experiential learner.
Yes.
Like I need to just do it to learn it.
Right. You don't want to read a bunch of textbooks and have to take a test.
Even when I see something like, like that could help me with what I'm doing now, like if I'm like, oh, like Brene Brown, like let me read her book. Like I really want to read her book.
Yeah.
And I'll get through 3 pages and I'll be like, oh, I can't. If it's not fictional, it's hard for me to crack it open and read it.
I can totally, absolutely relate to that. And in fact, there are often times where I joke with my husband where I'll say, can you read this and then give me the Cliff Notes?
I know. I just want the Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
I have found Audible to be an amazing
that's a good one.
thing. Because, I have that hour commute, so I'll just do an audiobook and be able to listen to it. So
I really need to get into that.
So, I 100% enjoy Audible a lot. It helps. So.
Well, and there's photography textbooks that I have often been given, and I'll be like,
right, just YouTube. Look at the YouTube video of it.
Now, exactly. Now, meanwhile, my husband, which is what makes him kind of advantageous when it comes to being able to do good at school, was he has 3 bookshelves upstairs of plant books, and it's just identifying different plants and insects, and he reads that for pleasure, and I'm just like, what the, you know what I mean? And that, I wish though sometimes that I had the patience, because he learns a crap ton, but it's just not, I can't.
I think the one thing that I can say to that pops into my mind is I got, for Secret Santa this year from a coworker, I got Chrissy Teigen's new cookbook, Cravings.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was actually on the couch reading that.
Were you?
And
it piqued your interest.
And Jeff, because she's, if you follow her on social media or anything about her, she's a little snarky she's really quick-witted.
Yeah.
And so just reading the little blurbs that she had with each recipe, I'm like, oh, I can read this all day long. And literally Jeff's like, are you reading the cookbook? I was just like, stop judging. Yeah,
right.
It's Chrissy Teigen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What appeals to you. I mean, I could read, it's funny, I could actually read political history books.
Oh,
that's what I read for pleasure, is political history books. And people are like,
that's what I would read to help me sleep at night.
Right. Most people say that. It started off in high school. It was rock and roll history. That was kind of what I did. And then it bled into, I started studying like Lincoln and JFK and stuff like that.
That's so interesting, right? Like especially those two. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So, and that's kind of how I got into it. But yeah, people are like, you read what for pleasure? And I'm like, I swear to God. Like, I don't even you say you like fiction. I've started to appreciate fiction more.
Yeah.
My daughter and husband are big fiction fans, but I like nonfiction. I like to know that this actually happened. Although, I think that's why something like Game of Thrones appeals to me, because it kind of feels like history a little bit, even though it
brings those historical elements.
Yeah.
Is it sad to say I've yet to watch a single episode of Game of Thrones?
This time last year, I was right in that same boat, but I was just like, I'm so fucking tired of hearing about it.
I gotta
and not
catch
knowing
up before season 7.
And now I'm obsessed. It's really one of those shows. Like, I'm so obsessed that I read all 5 books, too.
Yes.
That go along with the show, which are incredibly
Yeah.
complicated and whatever. That's how obsessed I got in a year. But
I appreciate doing that. Like I feel like if you read the book before the movie, then the movie's never going to live up to it, right? Or the show isn't going to live up to it.
Yes.
I feel like when you have the show or the movie first and then you read the books, like you have those visuals, which helps, and then it just then you get so much more from it.
It helps for you and I. I know a lot of people who would disagree with that sentiment because they like to form their own characters and stuff.
Just creative types.
I get it, exactly.
I getcha.
Well, which is funny because I consider myself somewhat creative, but I would much rather see it first. I mean, sometimes I've read it first, but for the most part, I've seen it first and then gone back to the book.
I think part of it is not so much the image, but it's like the detail that the book provides that the movie would never live up to.
Right.
And so I think just like the idea of like, oh, the movie interests me. Let me go and read the book. Like, and then you enjoy both of them on their own merit.
Absolutely.
So that is where I feel like it really kind of like, I will never read, like if I see a book out and it's like soon to be a motion picture, I'm like, gonna wait for you, sir. Gonna wait.
Yeah.
So
definitely. Now, so skip back. So you, after you graduated, after 3 years, you went to University of Baltimore.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So tell me a little bit about University of Baltimore. I had another friend go there too. It's kind of one of those schools where I'm sure it's been there forever, but it's like nobody knew that it was there.
So what was funny is I applied to another university way too late because I was a procrastinator. Got waitlisted, and so then I was talking to my boss at the paint store, and she was telling me about how she went to University of Baltimore. Okay. And how it's it was at that time a 2-year senior college.
Oh, cool.
So it was just junior and senior years.
Right.
And it was for people who worked.
Yeah.
So it's like, I went down there one day in late August and put in an application. It got approved, and I was like, thank you, Jesus. I'm still going to school.
Right.
And so I started going there. It was a very small school at the time. It's definitely grown since then.
Sure.
I want to say that was probably, oh my gosh, maybe 02.
Okay.
So it was the fall of 02 that I started doing that. And so it's definitely grown. It's now a 4-year university.
Yes.
But it was very much like I went to school from 5:30 to 8 and then, or 5:30 to 7:45, would have a 15-minute break and then go from like 8:15 to like 10:45.
Yeah.
And so I would just take, like, I would go to like Psych 101 one day a week, and I would come back, so I wouldn't have to do like the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or the Tuesday, Thursday.
Oh, so that's what it was, the long classes,
It was a 2.5-hour class.
And you were working full-time during the day.
So I would work. Well, at that point, I was still working part-time at the paint store.
Oh, okay, sure.
But then after I got my bachelor's degree in 04, I then, so I got my bachelor's in psychology.
So I was going to ask, yep, okay.
And then I was then able to get a job in educational research.
Oh, interesting.
So I worked for a company called Success for All. So they're a subsidiary of Johns Hopkins University.
Okay.
And so they basically created, it's a nonprofit that they did, how do I say this? It's right there on the tip of my tongue. That they would create these reading programs and math programs for Title I schools, so schools that had like a very high ratio of students with free or reduced lunch, that the schools could purchase the program with federal funds, and then they would have people go out and provide services to help implement the programs, etc. And so what I did in my job was I went out and did reading assessments for kids. So, but it was nice because I would be able to go to like places I never went to. I never would think to go to like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and I would get to like
so you got
kids.
to travel.
So I got to travel.
Nice.
I used to get to go to a couple of different places, which was nice.
Did you take advantage and like go out and stuff?
Oh yeah, like
awesome.
I mean, I made sure that like when I went to Alabama that I got some real soul food and was like, and they were like trying to. I went with a coworker and we went up to like a concierge at the airport and we're like, we want to get some real like food here. Like, where do we go? And he was trying to direct us to like a Red Lobster or something. Right. And we're like, no. We want the hole in the wall shack on the side of the road that you know is amazing. Yeah, and so he literally pointed us in the direction of a hole in the wall shack on the side of the road. And it was the most amazing. Like, we got like deep fried catfish and the best hush puppies ever. I can still remember it. It's been several years ago. So
yeah, that stuff stays with you.
Good choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got to travel around a lot and like, around the country and go to places I wouldn't have gone otherwise. So it was nice to do that and to do something I enjoyed. I really enjoyed doing assessments with kids. So
well, and that's what I was going to ask. What led you to psychology, and then, kind of what led you to doing that sort of job? How long were you there for, by the way?
I was in research for 7 years.
7 years, so a long time. So you obviously liked it to some degree.
Yeah.
So,
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Where was that thought process? Did you take a psych class and just enjoyed it, or was there something else?
No, I mean, if you ask my mom, she knew from day one that I was going to be a therapist.
Interesting.
And she could just see it.
Yeah. Is it one of those situations where she told you and you were like, no way, I'll never do it, and then it turns out?
Yes, it 100% was that. Like, she was like, I told you would
Mothers, they're always right. I know.
God. Can't wait till I can do it to my kids.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I guess, I think it was part in dealing with my parents' divorce and not really like talking about it a lot. Gotcha. And then just, all the moving and like with the moving there is that emotional upheaval, but it also is like really sitting back and observing behaviors. And I realize that sounds like a creeper type of move. But it wasn't. For me, it was just like, I don't know people, and people aren't really engaging with me, and so what else am I supposed to do? I'm either going to insert myself into things, or I'm going to sit back and just kind of hear and see what they're talking about. Because what else am I going to do while I'm here in class? Right. So I think, even going to, like, elementary school, I was honing a lot of the techniques that I use today in session.
Crazy. Like, it's funny how that comes around again.
I know, it really does.
Yeah.
And I think, like, and I always say to anybody really, like when I think about like going to grad school, it really was 2 birds, 1 stone. Like it was 100% like I learned all of this theory and how to do therapy, but then it was almost like therapy for myself well. That like I was really able to like do a lot of introspective work and like see how this particular course content applied to me in my life and how I could, work through it and process it.
Right.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity. So
yeah, it's great how that works. I know that through my daughter's experience, she sometimes helps tutor some of the lower performing kids in her class, and talking to my mother-in-law who's an educator, and she's like, yeah, that helps them learn it better themselves. And it's kind of what you're saying now, where I'm sure not selfishly that's why you got into that field, but at the same time, it seems to have happened for a reason. Like you were saying, you had been leading up to it, unbeknownst to you, but still. But then, sort of how by you helping others, you're in turn helping yourself. And it's kind of a cool thing how that works, isn't it? You kind of feel like, I know I do. I feel kind of like, if I'm doing something that's mutually beneficial, I feel almost guilty because I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be getting any benefit out of this. It should be all about them. But then you're like, well, no, but it's good though, because then, everybody wins kind of, or.
Yeah, it definitely, I think in grad school, it definitely was like that for me. Did
you go to grad school right after college?
Yes. So I recognized that if I were to stop going to college for a semester even, that I would just stop going to college. Yeah. So I knew that enough about myself. So I just kept on plugging my way through. So I got my graduate degree in applied psychology in 2010. So it was a little bit of a journey. But at that point, I was working full time, so I wasn't going to grad school.
And you were traveling, obviously, too. Yeah.
Yeah. So some semesters I just took one course. Sometimes I took two. If I was really adventurous, maybe I took three and then regretted it.
Right.
But yeah, so we and during that whole time, it was we bought our house and we were doing all that. So, I think right out of high school, Jeff and I got back together. Jeff Logan and I got back together.
Did he go to school with us?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
Again, I must have missed high school apparently, because I'm like, who? What?
No,
he was he in our grade too?
Yeah.
Where am I?
He went to Cape. He went to Cape Elementary. Yeah,
so
you're going to look in the yearbook.
Yeah, that's why I look him up now. Because where was I in high school?
No,
I swear to God.
Yeah,
that's so crazy. So you guys dated in high school too?
So we dated in high school for 10 months, which I feel like
Don't you love when it's 10 months?
And in high school, 10 months.
That's a long time.
It could be 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So we dated for 10 months, and we broke up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now
you remember him? You see the picture?
Because I've seen your Facebook profile, but I guess I just never zoomed in close enough. But looking at his yearbook picture, now I see. Okay.
Yes.
My bad, Jeff. I'm sorry.
So we went to, we dated in high school and broke up, I think at the end of our junior year. And then we ended up getting back together after we graduated high school. But officially in January 2010. Yes.
That's when you officially got together?
So when we officially were together. We were just friends, and then it was just we still kind of like each other. Okay, sure, we'll do this. January 2010, we got back together. And we moved in together, and, and then fast forward. No, wait, 2000. I'm sorry. I'm talking about when I got married.
Check.
So 2000 is when January 2000 is when we got back together, and then January 2010 is when we got married.
You got married. Oh, yeah. Wow. So 10 years in between, and I'm sure college and career.
We were both going to college.
Yeah, what does he do?
So he got his degree in Towson, and then he's actually working for Sherwin-Williams.
Is he really?
That's
so funny.
As funny as it sounds. I think at one point he was working for Best Buy, way back then, and then I think Sherwin was looking for work while I was still working there, and I was like, hey there, and he's just kept with it. So,
right.
So he really knows how to paint.
He really knows how to paint.
He can tell you all about the applications.
Oh, interesting.
Me now, I'm like, I think this is what you do. And he's like, not anymore. So sorry.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, so he, and Martel Threadgill also works for Sherwin-Williams.
Oh,
and, and so does Fred Davis. They actually all work for Sherwin at this point. So yeah.
Hey, if a company treats you good and you can make a good living at it, then fucking hey. It's so hard to find that nowadays.
Yes. Yep. So
that's awesome.
It is. Yeah. So Jeff's been with Sherwin, I thought I was talking about it yesterday or maybe this morning. It's 18 years.
Wow.
He's been with it. Yeah.
Okay. real quick to side note, is it not for you, like it is for me, crazy to be able to say that I've been doing something for 18 years and you were an adult when you started, technically with the 18-year-old.
It's not, it's like, I was just thinking I realized we're only in March, but I was already thinking ahead to our 10-year anniversary next year. And I'm like, 10 years?
Right.
Like, married 10 years.
Yes.
Like, that's like, married 10, together for 20, like...
Those are crazy numbers that our 10-month dating would never
would have, and that's not even included in. But like, I make sure to let people know. I'm like, people are like, oh, you're a high school sweethearts. I'm like, no.
There was a large break in between.
We dated in high school. Were we high school? I don't feel like that. Like in my
Right.
mind, it's like you've been continuously together for. So we had a little
But
bit
still,
of a break
you
there.
guys got back together in 2000, so there wasn't a huge gap. But nevertheless,
Yeah. I don't know. In my mind, it just was like, no.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something too cookie cutter about it. Is that wonky? I feel like it's a little wonky.
No, I understand. There's technicalities to it, and you want them to get it right.
I want to make sure I'm precise, if anything,
exactly.
Right? So we had our first kid in 2011. His name's Landon.
Okay.
And then we had Declan in 2015.
Okay, Declan. That's an interesting name. Where did that come from?
Babycenter.com.
Okay. All right. So you just were like, I like that name, and that's what we're going to do.
I was like looking at different, trying to, and it's so funny. I just did like, my brother Greg laughs at me. He's like, do you not have anything to do with your day that you're doing your Ancestry.com profile? And I was like, but I really just wanted to know.
You doing that?
And so I did it. I did it last summer a little bit, but then I, unless I'm going over to Greece or Italy, like I'm not going to find out any more information. I don't think at this point.
Is that what it is? A combination of Greek and Italian in you, or
Greek, Italian, and Irish?
Irish. So, gotta throw that Irish in.
The Irish. I mean, how else are you going to explain this pale skin?
Right.
I'm literally an anomaly. My mom is full Italian, and so I go around my cousins, and they're always like, where do you live? A cave? And I'm just like, look, nobody can come out as like a tan goddess such as yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a similar thing. I'm not 100% Italian. I only have probably 25% Italian. Yeah. But my Italian, I call my Italian family, they all live in Queens and Long Island. So, of course, they have that heavy New York accent.
Love it.
And, they're dark skin, dark complexion. Unlike me, I also have Irish and Scottish and all that.
Stick out, right?
Yeah, and they used to always make, not only was I very white, but it was also, you sound like a hick. Because I have this southern accent, apparently, according to them.
Yes.
Which is hilarious because you were talking about Philly. I actually have, and your accent, I actually have this thing where to my Jersey friends, I can sometimes, they're like, you're from Jersey, right? And I'm like, no, I'm from Maryland. And they were like, really? And then my Maryland friends all think I'm from Jersey. So I guess, I mean, my one side of the family, they say I have a southern accent, but everybody else thinks I'm from Jersey. And I've lived in Maryland my whole life. I was kind of like you, though, where I was living in Maryland, so I didn't go all the different states you did. But before we came to Annapolis, I probably had moved 7, 8, several times, you know what I mean?
I think,
and we moved, I think, even 2 times while we were in Broadneck, just not out of the...
staying,
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Well, so let's get to feminist woman power real quick, because we kind of skipped over that a little bit. You have become a mental health professional, and, I mean, that's just taxing, very... I'm sure rewarding, but at the same time, all-consuming and stressful, and there's a lot that goes on. And then you were telling me earlier that you have managerial positions that I'm sure add on to that sort of caseload. Yeah. So, how is that work-life balance for you? Have you found it to be a bit of a struggle over the last 8+ years with the kids?
So no, actually my job, like one of the things that where I work, actually it's Brianne Lawson. Then Lawson, her name is Han. She graduated in 98. She's actually one of the owners at the company that I work for. So it's a company that's ran by social workers.
Okay.
There's another owner as well who's a CPA accountant. So it's like we have like the mental health side covered, and then we also have the financial side covered within the company,
That's
which
what
is
you need. Yeah.
It really is like such an amazing combination, and like it's really like a work family where I work. Although there are like 200 people at the that are employed there. Like it really is like you go to work and you go there and you have fun, and like it can be very stressful sometimes, and it can be very intense.
Right.
But for the most part, it's really rewarding work.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that they really stress is self-care and making sure that you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I went to grad school and it's like, psh, and I heard about, like burnout, and I'm like, I'm never going to get burned out. Not me. Maybe those other weaklings. Sorry about your luck. And then it's like, and then you get smacked with burnout. Right. And like, I went to a training one time and they were like, if you're saying, I feel like I'm about to be burnt out, you're already burnt out. You're already there. And so I really took that to heart. And so whenever I find myself going, oh, I feel like I'm about to burn, I'm like, oh, I'm burnt out. Yeah. And so like for me to be like, you know what, I'm taking the best place where you could say I need a mental health day is where you're working at a mental health clinic.
Yeah. So, where you know how important that mental health is.
Yes. Yeah. Like if it's just, and like, our bosses have even at times been like, you've been working too hard. I don't want you in here on Friday. Like, you're not working on Friday. Cancel your day.
That's awesome.
They'll even send out an email. So saying,
businesses miss out nowadays when they don't try to treat their employees. Yeah. I mean, it just makes me so sad because it's like, stay loyal to them. They'll stay loyal to you. And when you don't have that turnover, there's not that cost of training new people. I just don't understand businesses are like, fuck you, you're just gotta go, Right. That's awesome to hear.
It really is. It's a, there's like a really well-known outpatient mental health clinic here in Dundalk that I used to work for. I've always done in-home work. Okay. So for me, like as a therapist, I would go into client homes. I would go into Cherry Hill. Like I would love to go into Cherry Hill actually because I could see so many clients there all at once. Right. And then I could head home. Yeah. So like everybody living like 5 minutes from each other was super helpful. Sure. And so, like, I would, but I would also work inner city Baltimore. Like, I'd be down in Monument Street, like, just going to, different places off of Urban. And so, like, I created these clusters. And so I would go into client homes. I'd provide therapy services to them. And then I'd be able to go home. So I'm able to set my own schedule. That's cool. Which is really nice. Yeah. And so it would be like, I didn't have to work Fridays for, like, 7 years, and I was all right with that. Right, nothing wrong with that. I was working full time, working Monday through Friday, and or Monday through Thursday, and I would be able to have a 3-day weekend. Yeah, so that's nice. And then if I needed to take a week off, I'd take a week off. And I've recognized that, like, with other professions, you might be able to go like to just take one vacation a year. Yeah. For me, even if it's a staycation, I have to take like a week off at least once every 6 months. Yeah. At least every 6 months. So. And I mean,
I assume that your commute home helps with this to some degree, but I've got to imagine you have to have some kind of shedding at the end of the day. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
So I always like talk about it like you might hold people's energy. Right. I'm really big into energy. Yeah. And so like, people tend to unload all of their energy, and like you really hear sometimes where it's just like, oh, thank you so much today. Like I feel like I feel so much better getting that off my chest. And what it really is that they've unloaded all this negative energy off their chest, and then where is it?
It's on you.
Is it on me? Yeah. Right. And so then I have to then find ways of like using visualizations or something to really, pretend as if I'm not holding on to that energy, that I consider it a holding space, but not that I'm holding on to it. Right. So when the session ends, I release the energy just like the client does. So it's just,
It's invaluable, though, what you give to I've been pretty open about this. I've been seeing a therapist off and on for years, and I often think of you because I am one who takes on other people's pain and emotions and things, and that's kind of why I don't do that. That was one of the reasons why I was like, definitely not that, because I don't know that I could shed it. I have such a hard time shedding. Yeah. So, but the service that you provide for those of us who are struggling with our own mental health, it's great that there's that opportunity to be able to shed it on you. So thank you for letting us shed it on you. Of course. Right? I mean, that's great. Yeah. Well, but here's the interesting thing that I'm thinking of. There's obviously that stigma involved with mental health. Mm-hmm. So you are just fighting stigma all over the place with your life choices here, Michele. So let me tell you, I mean, have you come across that a little bit, or?
I mean, definitely, like when I go out and I do intakes with clients, which is basically like I'm getting them started in services with us. And there's definitely, there could be a family member a time or two that's like, I don't even know what the purpose of this is. Like, what the, I don't like telling people my business. Like, what do you need to know about this? And it's just kind of like one of those things of like, no, like I get it, I hear it, but what I always explain to people is like, I'm a walking journal. And if you don't like the service, like I love therapy enough that I'm not trying to force it on anybody that doesn't want it.
Right.
Like, I really, truly treat it like a baby. Like, for me, like, I value it that much, and I think it has that much impact. So, whether it's a teenager going, my mom's forcing me to do this, it's like I'm looking at mom going, I can get her signed into services, but do you want her to hate therapy so much that she's not going to use it in the future?
Right.
And so, like, you know, it's having those frank discussions, or like, okay, like if someone doesn't want therapy, but maybe they trust their pastor at church, it's like, well, go and talk to them. Yeah. I just want you to talk to somebody, like, because it sounds like you got a lot going on, but I can explain to you what therapy is and how I view it, but that I'm not trying to sell you on it. I'm not a used car salesman. I talk about a profession I could never do. I couldn't do that. And so it's like one of those things of like, I enjoy it too much. And if you don't like it, guess what? You could just say you don't want to do it. Right. And so I've come across that with a couple of different, different times, a couple of different clients. So
do you focus primarily on younger clients, or do you have a wide range of...
Me personally? Yeah. So me personally, I really, this is going to sound really weird. I really enjoy working with people with trauma. I
think I've heard you say that before, actually. Yeah.
And I know it sounds so like, really, Michelle, what does that even mean?
I take pleasure in other people's pain. No, that's not how it is.
No, it's not how it is. No. But I really do just enjoy helping people process and to see the healing process, or to see where they are in their journey. Yeah. And to just provide them the education to be like, no, this makes sense given what you've experienced in your life. Like, it makes complete sense. Like, you're engaging in XYZ because of XYZ at all. But what can we, like, how is that helping you? Is it helping you? Is it not helping you? And then how can we change that so that way you can move past any barriers that are set in your way right now. Sure. So it really is just exploring it and helping people process it. And especially when people are in that, we call it like the stages of change. And so when people are in that perfect stage of change that we want them to be in, where they're like contemplating into action, that we just, it's like the sweet spot, I think, for therapists that we're like, oh, this is going to be a great client to work with.
So do you still find yourself getting excited? I don't want to say excited because, again, that has a negative. But
I high five myself after sessions sometimes, 100%. Nice. Yeah, like I had one this morning, and and it's like sometimes you have to be direct as a therapist, and so it really is just saying like, I'm going to be a little direct today. Yeah. Like I give my clients fair warning. Heads like up. I'm going to be a little direct today. Yeah. Are you good for that or no? And if you're not, like, I can hold back. Right. But
this might help. So
might help.
Yeah.
And so it really is one of those things of like, I was listening to this podcast and it talk about like things that you pick up. Yeah. And it was a Real Housewives podcast because I'm a ridiculous fan of any city of Real Housewives.
Is that right?
It's talk about
that's
like
your guilty pleasure stuff.
Oh, I don't even know that it's guilty. It's just a pleasure.
Just pleasure.
It's just a pleasure. Sure. That any Housewives, Vanderpump Rules, like I'm all over it.
Yeah.
Bravo reality TV.
Then you can't get rid of cable if you like all that stuff. That you would miss that too much. I think.
I know. Maybe I could just do it on Hulu though, right?
Oh, that's
like,
true.
Maybe you could just do that.
That's true.
Maybe.
Right, maybe. Talk about psychological problems. Do you ever assess them while you're watching?
Oh my God, I love doing it. It is so like literally when it's like because I listened to the podcast about the Real Housewives and it's called Bitch Sex, which is by two comedians.
Okay.
And so like I'll listen to that and I'll be like, man, how great would it be to have like a therapist? And I'm sure it's already out there, right? Sure. But like a therapist that's analyzing the housewives, and like I was like, God, that would be right up my alley. I would love that. And so it was just funny. Like I was like, maybe I'll do a podcast. It was like my voice is too horrible. Nobody would listen, right? Like it's always like you have that type of.
Well, as we talk right now, I mean, I'm a trained broadcaster. That's what I went to college for. I worked on radio, and I still despise my voice. I know how to speak, to enunciate. But it's still, I'm like, so I definitely hear. We are very critical of ourselves as women. Do you find that to be? I mean, I'm sure you've seen that even in your profession, maybe. But do you experience that yourself?
I've definitely seen it in the profession. I think at one point in my life, yes, I was very self-critical.
Have you moved past that? It's good for you.
I think I have moved past it for the most part.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think, when I was in my 20s, I recognized that I just loved myself. Flaws and all. I just love myself. I can remember the exact moment. It's, like how you remember, some people are like, I remember the exact moment I fell in love with him or her, and blah, blah, blah. I can remember the exact moment that I realized that I love myself.
How important is self-love?
oh, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. Like, if you can't love yourself, what are you asking somebody else to do that you can't do for yourself?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you've heard that time and again, but
Totally.
there is that truth to it. Why you're looking outside yourself for something that you're not willing to give to yourself, which I think, you know, especially as women in American society, we're not necessarily taught to love ourselves.
Absolutely. Unless you are a size 2 and have flawless skin.
Yeah, and even then you're still being photoshopped.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I have a cousin actually who's always the prettiest person in the room, and she hates it. And it's like, it's a burden to be pretty. And so it's like, oh, well, shit. If it's a burden to be pretty.
You know, I definitely, I think, I also, like, lately have been, like, looking at, like, different things, like, in regards to chakras and, like, because, you know, I feel like when you're in mental health, for me anyway, my journey has been, like, learning about mental health, but then also, like, there's just, like, sometimes you get a feel for people in a room and you're like, the energy's good, like, I'm going to go for it. And then, like, sometimes you're like, ooh, no, person's not ready. And it's not necessarily anything that they're saying or doing. It's just the vibe or the energy that they're putting off. And so, you know, I've just been kind of exploring that more. And, like, in doing so, I'm learning more about chakras. And so I think the heart chakra is really important. And so, like, you know, and going to Reiki and, like, doing all that, like, you learn which ones are balanced and which ones aren't, you know. And so, like, it's interesting. And, like, you know, talking with someone, they're like, you're really good in the self-love department. I'm like, oh, good. Like, but even then you still need that little validation of like, oh yeah, I am good in like, in loving myself. Like, is there room for improvement? Of course. But no, I think I'm good the way that I'm moving along here.
I'm very happy to hear that. I ask that a lot of my women friends because I do, especially in my job as a photographer, you know, I'm going to break the camera or I look so awful. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's always, and as somebody who has just about always hated myself, but I say that in the most loving way possible, but I have found how important that is, and that's something that I've been working on in my own therapy sessions, which is, you know, I have all these ambitions and goals, but it's very hard to achieve them when you're knocking yourself down to square one again, and then you have to build yourself back up again. So with that being said, do you think, I've heard this so many times, you know, when you talk about gun debates or violence debates, do you think there's a mental health crisis or at least a lack of enough adequate mental health education or service or whatever you may say in this country where we all just seem to be so angry and depressed and mad all the time? Or where do you stand on any of that? It's such a big topic, I know.
I know. Let's just jump into it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think our way of life, we're always running a marathon at a sprinter's pace. And I think, of course, you're going to break down. Right. If you're not taking care of yourself. I mean, talk about self-care. Like, I don't know how many times I've had the self-care talk, and I realized, like, 2019 is the year of self-care, and it's like, it's almost like a fad that's kind of going on at this point, but it's like, how many people are actually engaging in it? Sure. I've had so many people that just like, no, I just keep going and going. No, I don't take time for myself. That's selfish. Right. And it's just kind of like, you're literally talking about going cross country in one car on one tank of gas. Right. Like, do you think that you're going to make it? That doesn't make any sense. Like, and it's like, well, I have kids. I have to take care of them first. And it's like, you're the center of the wheel. Right. If you don't take care of the center of the wheel, that whole wheel's coming crashing down. Well, and our mothers experienced this, and I think we're the next sort of way up where, you know, as women specifically, and men I'm sure feel this way too. I know my husband does. Yeah. But it's like, we are not stay-at-home moms. We are career women, but we also want to be the stay-at-home mom with the, you know, but strive at work to be the CEO. You know what I mean? So we can't have both. We can't have it all. You're going to, yeah, exactly. So I feel like I know a lot of, you know, women friends, they find that very hard to, you know, move past, especially as we get to middle age, where it's like, you know, I want to be a great mom and I keep missing because I'm at work. Because I don't want to miss work because I really love what I do and I want to be successful in whatever. So it's a very tough thing to balance right now. If you're at stay at home, then you're like, I did all that schooling and I did all this and now I can't, but I love my kids, but how do I? And I think, even for men too, it's 100% a thing of like, I have to provide, or like, you know, I want to be there for my kids, but I need to make sure that
We have money in the bank.
Stability, right? Yeah. And like, it's the same thing, I think. And so, it's funny. My mom said, we didn't do this self-care thing back, and we just did what we had to do.
Right? Oh my God, Our parents' generation has been telling me that for years. Yeah,
and it's like
bootstraps.
How did you like that?
Right,
you didn't like it.
Right.
Let's. So I think there is becoming more awareness of it, and I think that people are looking underneath the surface a lot more, which I really appreciate. Do I wish that mental health care were more accessible? Yes, 100%. Like, I think that many people's insurance, when you talk about like high deductibles, and that's a whole nother thing, right?
Totally.
But it's a lot of therapist friends I know, like it was just a conversation as I was leaving work, like a lot of therapists who are in private practice, meaning that you're going to, Joe Schmo, LCPC or LCSWC,
right?
He might not be taking insurance, and even if he is, it might be $35 a pop. And if you want to go weekly, you're talking about I can't do math. That's why I'm a therapist. You're
like 130-ish a month. 130
a month, like.
That's not always practical for everybody.
And that's not practical. Or if you really like seeing a particular therapist and they're $120 a session.
Right.
Now, how much are you talking at 120 times $480 a month?
Right.
Like, how are you doing $500 just like, here you go?
I mean, some people can do it, I'm sure, but definitely not the majority of us.
Not the majority of us. So I think it's, And
of course, those money problems add to the stress and the depression of being an adult.
Yeah.
So you need it more.
Yes. So I really do wish that there was, and I don't have the answer for that, unfortunately. But I wish that there were a more accessible way for people to receive mental health care, because I think it is important. And people are always like, I mean, have you been to a therapist? That's one of the questions that I get. And I'm like, of course, we keep each other in business. Like we have to, like, if we talk about a total health picture, like there's mind, body, and soul. Yes. People tend to forget about the mind part. And it's like, oh, I'm just going to worry about the physical. Yeah. And if you don't think that there are physical symptoms of depression, of anxiety, of trauma, then I don't know what to say. There are. Yeah,
I was going to say, I actually know that personally. I'm currently going to physical therapy 3 times a week.
Yeah. Because
of all the pain that I have. Now, I don't know that we also have some other things going on in our family that could contribute to that, but my x-rays look fine, type of thing. And so there's definitely a lot of manifestation with the anxiety. I know that physically, like when I have anxiety, I can feel the tension in my body, and that causes soreness and things afterwards, and so I'm sure that's going to build up over time and cause some sort of physical whatever. So it is very interconnected, and you don't realize it at first. You think, oh, I just have a stomach problem or whatever, and then you realize, oh my God, it wasn't a stomach problem. It was just straight up anxiety causing, or manifesting itself in that area.
100%, yes.
Yeah.
Because you feel it in your back, you feel it in your chest, you feel it in your stomach. Like you tend to feel your anxiety in your trunk.
Right.
So it's 100%. Or you tend to have massive migraines, and it's
I have those too.
Yeah. So it's 100% like all of those things of like, I ask people if they do have stomach problems, and they're telling me they have anxiety because they are physical symptoms of it. Or even, in working with primary care physicians, like that when they screen, they actually do more of the physical symptoms of depression or anxiety, but they're still screening for them.
Yes.
And then, being referred out at that point.
Right.
So,
do you find yourself in a social situation analyzing people?
No.
A lot of people worry, they think that social workers and therapists do that, but you don't.
Please rest assured.
Yeah.
Beyond the Real Housewives. It is unethical. It's probably unethical for me to even analyze them, but it is unethical for me to analyze anyone who is not a client. It's against my ethics. And by that point, like working at the paint store all the time, like I used to talk with painters and I'd be like, I bet your house is painted from top to bottom, and I'm like, that's my early 20-year-old voice. And and they'd be like, God, no. When I go home, I'm dead tired. I don't want to paint my own house. Totally. And so he's like, and they'll be like, I haven't painted my house in years. Exactly. And it's just like, oh, that's exactly how it is for a therapist.
Sure.
When,
it's
like
the last thing you want to be doing.
Last thing, my brother, I love Greg to death, but one of the things that he really does enjoy is a good philosophical conversation around a holiday dinner. And I'm just like, get out of my face. I would like to drink my wine and open up a gift. Right. Can we just play a board game, please, sir? So, no, in no way, shape, or form. I even had a colleague once who she was like, yeah, if people ask me what I do, I actually tell them I'm an actuary. Like
an actuary? What's an actuary?
I feel like an actuary is one of those people, I might be wrong, but I feel like they're one of those people that like Ben Stiller in Along Came Polly.
Oh, okay.
So, like, we're, like, calculating the risks of, like, like, one of those, but, like, she just came up with some random, really boring job.
So that people wouldn't...
like, so that they wouldn't, like, then unload all of their problems.
Like a doctor, like, oh, I have this thing, can you look at it?
Right. So I think that when Jeff and I, we went on a trip to Hawaii, and there was a colleague there that he was like, oh, yeah, well, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a mental health therapist, never had a problem with it in the past. Ended up unloading his entire trauma history on me, and I was just like... Here I am in paradise on vacation. And so it 100% was just like, oh, okay, good. And it wasn't like just for that one conversation. Like we would then find each other again at some point. And you'd be like,
oh, Michelle, I got more for you.
Oh, yeah. You do good work. And I was like, I haven't done any work with you. It's just right. I don't know you. I don't want to do work right now.
I know that feeling from a much smaller scale. Like when I tell people I'm a photographer, they're like, oh, you can photograph my daughter's wedding for free, right? And I'm like, no. That's so stressful. And like,
am I going to eat air? Like,
yeah. I don't. Yeah, my rent does not cost free.
Right.
I wish.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So. Circling back around to 20 years out of high school, I'm curious.
Yeah.
You and I have been sort of planning our 20-year reunion for the last few months. Mm-hmm. What made you decide to participate and want to get involved again with trying to herd cats, as it were, and get folks to come to our reunion? What was your...
I feel like it was funny. I want to say it was maybe MJ that she was like, oh, yeah, good luck being like the senior class president. Now you have to plan other reunions. And I was like, what? Huh?
Didn't realize that when you took that.
No, had no clue.
That's so funny.
So, yeah.
I mean, but you still have a choice, right?
I think so, yes. Like, if I decided I didn't want to do it, I could just be
or
like...
if you lived in California
I could be like, hey, here are the proceeds from the last one.
Right.
Like, do what we need to.
Right.
So, yeah, I think just for me, it kind of goes back to, like... At the 5-year, I think I was just in the midst of like college and juggling jobs, and it just was too much. And so we didn't have a 5-year. So we lost the $1,500 that's normally stored for us to have a 5-year reunion. And then we had the 10-year, and that was at Olmsted Barn.
Right.
And like Kelly Breeden and Robin Beers, Micah Berryman, and I want to say there's one other person, but my memory's shot, so I apologize.
Sure.
So they were all really helping put together, because again, during the 10-year, I was definitely participating in helping plan, but I was doing my internship, working full time, planning a wedding. Like it was pretty intense that fall. So we had it in November.
And of course, we were in the midst of like the worst recession ever that year. That was 2009, and that was like right after all that crap.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was super fun. So it was super fun. Come on, drink some beer with some old classmates.
Right.
So we thought that was really successful. Just because we definitely, with the advent of social media, like it's a lot of like, how many times have you run into somebody and been like, your kids are adorable, and you keep on trucking.
Right.
And so there is that aspect to it of a lot of people being like, I don't need to, I can see everything I need on social media.
Yes.
But I don't necessarily believe that's fully the case.
I agree.
Like for me, like I don't put my kids on social media. I don't really put a lot about, because my life is pretty much my family and my job at this point, that I just don't tend to put a lot on social media. Right. So, and I'm sure that there are many more similar to me. So it is nice to just catch up. And then coming into like this go around with the 20-year, we were able to store up a little bit of a starter fund from the 10-year, which, like I said, was a nicer turnout than we anticipated.
That's good.
And so we we're here now, and we're just planning away. So
well, and it's when you had mentioned social media not posting. I'm obviously a shameless promoter of my child, and she's always up on social media. But that being said, and I am fairly active, mostly for the marketing aspect of my job. But what I don't get on social media is, I mean, you can't ever replace that interpersonal conversation that you and I are having right now, and that you and I and that the rest of us on the planning committee have had these last several months as we've done it, where I've been following Erin, for instance, on Erin Gray Pumphrey, on social media for years, and I've seen her kids, and I know her husband. I used to hang out with them, so it's not like I didn't know kind of what she was up to, but being able to talk to her and like reminisce, and then realize, we didn't really hang out in high school, but actually we could have hung out in high school. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm finding a lot, even with just the 5 to 10 of us who have been in this process where it's like, in high school you're too much in, that's not my clique or whatever whatever bullshit, comes up in that. Yeah. But maybe it's just because I'm a different person than I was then, where I'm like, I could have been friends with any one of you, actually. I just limited myself. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think the thing is that for me in high school, because, I came in my sophomore year, so for me, I didn't necessarily have these, like, in-depth things. And then to add to it that, when you have an overprotective mom that doesn't necessarily let you out of the house. Yeah. So I feel like I knew a lot of people, but more like passing in the hall, like almost like on a superficial. Yes. And I say that in a nice way. It's just that I didn't know many people in a deep way. Yes. And so for me, it's like I can recognize faces really well, and I can recognize names. And so, like, I think I had the whole class list memorized at one point, just with how
I know you're impressive. You've been impressive at the meetings. I'm like, yeah. Between you and Maggie, I'm like, and Kristen, for instance, I'm like, you guys you got
Kristen and Maggie are on a whole, and Aaron are on a whole another level.
They really are.
So, but yeah, I think it's just one of those things of like, I always enjoy bringing people together. Right. And so I think it's just a really great way to connect with people, even if it's someone that you haven't seen in a while. Like I was over like Mike Rollins' house for...
Because he's your brother-in-law or something, right? Or
No. Him and Jeff used to play Hoop It Up in high school. Him and Shane, and I know that there was another person. Again, my memory's horrible.
Memory terrible.
And so like I remember going and seeing their games, and so Mike and Jeff just have always had like a connection.
Gotcha. Because I saw something on Facebook, I think, recently, and Mike was in it, so I guess that's why I assumed. Like, it was a big group photo with all you guys in it.
Oh, yeah. So, so there was a, so I think that was because Mike Rollin married Amy. Oh, Amy's going to kill me.
What her maiden name is?
Begins with an H. Holden.
Okay.
Amy Holden.
Okay.
Goodness. I just look at her as Amy Rollin now. Right. And so I think that was a lot of Amy. So class of 2000, I think but I think like at like his daughter's birthday party, there were a ton of people there that I just was like, oh, I remember you. How's it going? And just like talking it up. But it's like people that Mike's kept in contact with over the years. And so like it was one of those things of like, I remember talking to you in high school and chatting with you. And so it was nice just to reconnect in that way.
It's very fun. It's definitely very fun to bring with you the adult perspective of things. I'm more confident in myself. I'm not so worried about what you're thinking I'm wearing or whatever the heck, craziness that we go through in teenage years. And you're like, let's talk on a human level right now.
Yeah, it really is nice to just be like, let me get to know you as rather than the person that I thought you were in high school.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, let me get to know you who you are. Yeah.
Right. Isn't that funny how we classified ourselves as, something? Like, I always say that I was the dumb jock in high school because that was my persona. Yeah. And now it's like, my friends look at me and they're like, but you're just a nerd. And I'm like, yeah, but not back then I wasn't. You know what I mean? I did not want anything to do with nerddom. You know what I mean? So, but I married a nerd, and he was a nerd in high school, and I realize now, like, why did you limit yourself that much?
Why did you hold back your nerdness?
That's what I'm saying. Like, for instance, we were talking about Step Squad earlier. I mean, now I could see myself maybe at least attempting to, like, try. Whereas back then, I would have been like, no way.
It's so funny, the number of people that came up to be like, how did you do that? I don't understand. And I'm just like, how many times have you beat out a rhythm on a table with your hands? Like, it's essentially all that we're doing with our hands and feet. I mean, there are the other cultural aspects to it, but for the most part, it's 100% just you're putting out a rhythm with your hands and feet. Like it's so for me, it was just like if you have rhythm, you can do it.
We need to get if Nahima and some of these guys come to the reunion, we need to get like a performance. Wouldn't that be hilarious?
That would be funny.
Could you remember any of it? Probably not.
No, it was funny. I think. What's Megan's last name? So it was a graduate from 98 that I remember her being like, oh my gosh, how are you? And it was on Facebook a while ago. And I'm like, good, how are you? She's like, good, are you still stepping? And I was like, In my living room? Like, question mark. Like, I'm like,
Right.
I don't know beyond like college steps, like, getting into sororities and stuff, like where else you would have done that. But it was
you just do it for fun and, on your off time.
To her credit, she was very much into theater and had continues to do theater even today. So it was really funny to have someone ask me that, like, you still doing step? And I'm like, no.
Not at all.
Like, I enjoy watching movies about it, sure, but not necessarily, or like, if I get a competition.
Doing it. Hell of a workout though, I'm sure, if you needed to like burn some calories maybe.
Maybe. I don't know.
That's actually what these are for. I mean, I don't play live. Yeah, oh man, they burn so many calories.
Really?
I love it. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
And stress relief. My therapist is always like, when you get angry, just bang it out on the drums. And I was like,
Yep. It's 100% what I told one of my clients. They I'm like, where's your guitar? Go and just like rock out on your guitar. Like, you need self-care. You need to do that. Yeah.
That was me in high school. Music. I went through a lot of trauma, and music was my shit. That kept me, music and sports, and then, of course, friends, but those were kind of, like, my main...
They kept you, definitely. Kept you grounded,
Yeah. So, one funny joke I want to make, I want to say that our 20-year union is going to be on May 4th at the Annapolis Elks Lodge, which is in Edgewater. Funny enough that it's Annapolis Elks. Maybe that's why I was confused, because I was like, I think it's in Edgewater, but it's Annapolis.
And I think that there is a different location on the peninsula in Arnold. Do not go to that.
Don't go to the Arnold one. Go to the Edgewater one.
And I think we realized the last meeting that we were opening it up to anyone. So like if you don't have to just be class of 99. Right. If we're not going to be inclusive. Like you weren't part of 99, you can't come.
I've already invited a couple of my class of 2000 friends and come on down.
I think it'd be a great why not?
Because again, you're limiting, because, a lot of us we were friends with kids who were older than us, we were friends with kids who were younger than us, and it's kind of like, bring them all together.
I was really good friends with Gerald Stansberry, who graduated in 2000, so, in my senior year, we went to prom together, so it was just one of those, if he wanted to come on by, he can, anybody that would want to can come on by.
On by, yeah, absolutely, and I remember we're kind of having I think it was Cinco de Mayo was the idea, but I know that I had suggested Star Wars Day, and you all kind of looked at me, because May the 4th is technically Star Wars Day.
Force be with you.
Right, exactly. And so, we were talking about earlier, my family is very much a Star Wars nerd family.
What are you going to do?
I know, but I said it, and it was the funniest thing. I don't know if you were at that meeting, but it was one of those situations where, the record screeched, everybody looked at me, and there was crickets, and I was like, okay, I guess not.
That's hysterical. I think if just the fact that it came out of nowhere, I think in context I would have picked it up, but I probably it would have screeched for me as well.
I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about, woman?
And then I feel like we have also at O'Loughlin's, we have coming up.
March 27th, I want to say.
It's a Wednesday, so if anyone's in the Arnold area, they can always come by. And just say that you're there for the Broadneck class of 99. You can get a little ticket on your way in, and you just show it to them, and then
I think the flyer that we were going to print.
And then 10% of the proceeds will go to us trying to put on an amazing party.
Absolutely, and I've even mentioned to some folks who maybe live out of town and their parents still live in the Arnold, Annapolis area, that they can go to O'Loughlin's as well, show us the ticket. Doesn't matter, you don't have to be class of 99, you can be family, friend, whatever. Just come on in and eat a lot of good food and help us raise some money.
I'll make sure my mom goes there.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I already invited my mom. I invited everybody. I was like, let's go.
Yes.
Very good. Well, Michele, it's been a real absolute pleasure to get to know you a little bit today. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.